Welcome to ePathashala Architecture lecture series for MArch students. In this module, we are going to see a continuation of climate responsive architecture for moderate climate. We had seen in the previous module how we can design for moderate climate based on following simple thumb rules got from Mahoney's tables. Based on it, we can design the building for simple passive techniques. In order to make the building more efficient, we must follow advanced passive techniques. As part of it, we had seen the first advanced passive technique, natural night ventilation, in the previous module. In this module, we will see the other 4 advanced passive techniques. Earth-air contact. Earth-air contact works on a simple principle that soil temperature at a depth of about 12 feet or more stays fairly constant throughout the year and is approximately equal to the average annual ambient air temperature. The ground can therefore be used as a heat sink for cooling in the summer, as a heat source for heating in the winter. For example, for a town like Bangalore, the temperature below 12 feet is 24 degrees centigrade and it is constant throughout the year. In Delhi, the earth's temperature at a depth of about 12 feet is nearly constant at a level of about 23 degrees centigrade throughout the year. These are two strategies for using this principle. These are direct earth contact cooling technique and buried pipe cooling. Direct earth contact. The building in this case may be coupled with the earth either by conduction, that is, where the building envelope is in contact with the deep earth, by burying or berming. What we mean to say is, one part of the building is in constant connect with the earth or the soil at a depth. It is not at a subterranean level, but it is at a depth. It is at a depth where the temperature of the earth is fairly constant and is normally equal to the annual average temperature of that particular place. By being in contact with the surface of a particular temperature, heat gain or heat loss can happen across the building by means of conduction. The advantages of this kind is it has limited infiltration and heat losses. Because it is in direct contact with the earth, there is no agency for the heat transfer. Therefore, heat loss is very minimal. Solar and heat protection. You can clearly see that in a subterranean surface, there is no need to consider or design for heat protection. Reduction of noise and vibration, fire and storm protection, and improved security. Because the building is secluded within the ground, there is very little chance of noise or vibration from anywhere else. The disadvantages are inside condensation. Sometimes it can result in condensation because of temperature differences. Slow response to changing conditions. Poor day lighting and poor indoor air quality, both are important. Here we can clearly see that cross ventilation cannot happen because the entire building is submerged within the ground, within the soil. Cross ventilation cannot happen. Daylighting is completely cut from this facade for this floor. Daylighting might happen only from this facade. Also, a section like this, a building section like this, is possible only on a hilly terrain, rarely on a regular terrain. Next, we move on to buried pipes cooling. In this concept is to pass air through an underground air tunnel. The air thus cooled or heated can be used directly for the conditioned space or indirectly with air conditioners or heat pumps. The concept of buried pipes involves the use of metallic or PVC pipes buried at 1 to 4 meters in depth. In the previous case, heat gain or heat transfer happened because of direct contact with the earth. In this case, heat transfer will happen through a tube which is buried inside the earth. The tube will absorb or radiate heat. The tube will get the heat of the ground which is at 12 feet below the soil, below the surface, and then that air temperature will be gotten through the tube inside the building. So, this is what I meant, that we have outside air, there is a tube, underground tube, and then there is a air outlet. So, air comes here, heat transfer takes place here. So, it is ground coupled air heat exchanger. The tube acts like a ground coupled air heat exchanger. Air comes through the tube and it passes into the building at a temperature which is the average of this place, which means when it is very cool outside, the air will be warm. When it is very warm outside, the air will remain cool. The advantage of this system is it is low energy. 1/3 of the conventional AC system's power requirement is all it needs. We have better indoor air quality, because you can see all the air that gets inside the building is actually fresh air through an inlet. 100% fresh air circulation in the premises. Minimum of 28 degrees centigrade can be maintained during peak summer. During peak summer, the temperature of a place, moderate place, especially a place like Coimbatore, can go up to 38 degrees centigrade also, which means we can maintain a temperature of 28 degrees centigrade by using this kind of a earth air coupled system. Here we look at a case study again of buried pipes technique at ST works. By day, an earth to air heat exchanger cools down the supply air flow. Concrete tubes with a diameter of 80 centimeter and length of 40 meter each are buried 3 to 5 meters deep and connected to the ventilation system. This is what I meant by saying that pipes which are as big as 80 centimeters and which are as long as 40 meters, which means when the length is long, the air gets sufficient time for heat exchange to happen and acquire the temperature of the subsurface or subterranean soil temperature. Here we can see, here we can see that the external temperature fluctuates itself in this manner, whereas earth to air temperature has very mild fluctuations, which is much lower than the outside. You can see that the fluctuation is about 10 degrees. There is a 10 degree approximately fluctuation, in which case if we are able to have the heat to air exchanger, the temperature indoors can remain fairly constant and at a much lower temperature than the outside during the hottest part of the year and much higher than the outside during the coolest part of the year. It is maintained on an average between say 23 to 26 degrees centigrade, which is a very comfortable temperature. The maximum temperature in summer never exceeds 22 degrees centigrade on the first floor, and the maximum temperature is below 23.5 and 26 degrees centigrade on the second floor. This can be seen as a system where on a summer day you can see that hot air comes inside. As it comes inside, the temperature outside, say for example, could be 35 degrees centigrade, whereas subterranean temperature could be 23 degrees centigrade. As the air flows inside, the air loses its heat to the ground and becomes less in temperature, As it comes towards the building, it becomes cooler air. It is sucked into various floor through inlets. These inlets must be designed earlier in advance. It comes in, it cools the room, becomes warm. Warm air tends to rise, it goes up through the ceiling, a vent is provided near the ceiling and warm air escapes, and this cycle continues. It does not cost the building anything during the operational stages, though initial expenses or initial investments happen, but over a period of time all that can be regained. Third technique is evaporative cooling, roof pond cooling system. Evaporative cooling lowers the indoor air temperature by evaporating water. Water has a particular thermal mass, and that principle is used in this evaporative roof pond cooling system. In dry climates, this is commonly done directly in space, but indirect methods such as roof ponds allow evaporative cooling to be used in more moderate climates too. You can see that the roof of the building has a water pond. On a winter day, the water pond gets heated, the water gets heated, and then at night the pond is covered, which means this room has some warm water on top of it. Throughout the night it radiates the warmth inside a room on a winter night, which is very chill outside, but because of this heat radiated inside, the indoors become very comfortable. During summer, during the day, the pond is closed, it is covered with a reflective material. So, what happens is the heat gets reflected, the room which becomes warm gives its temperature or heat to the water, which means that there is warm water here. During the day, during the night, the pond is opened and the heat is released outside. So, this is the principle of evaporative roof pond cooling system. This is the cover which is laid on the roof pond, and this is the roof pond treatment, roof pond cooling system. Next is passive downdraft evaporative cooling with night sky cooling, PDEC. This system comprises of a downdraft evaporative cooling tower. So, here you have two towers. The principle on which this acts is that because of differences in humidity, air movement can happen. Here what happens is, there is a difference between indoor and outdoor air temperature, but if we are able to further create humidity differences, there will be certain kind of a air movement generated, because humid air tends to settle down, whereas dry air tends to move up. Same as warm air tends to move up and cool air tends to settle down. Here you can see that there is some movement happening here. Cool air comes in, there are micronizers or mist forming devices. They spray some kind of water here, and the air through these grills move inside the building. The air is cool, it is humid in a dry area, and then the hot air goes out through these channels through aluminum levers and escape. You have a fixed glass here which raises the temperature in this stack. When the air temperature here is high, cool air tries to find its outlet through the room and escape. So, you have air which comes in, micronizers or mist producing thing, it could be anything. Traditionally, we have used earthen pots with water inside, but now we can also have a mechanized system which sprays water continuously. The air which comes in absorbs the humidity from the spray. As it comes inside, it finds an outlet into the room. It gets inside the room and then because there is hot air here, because of glazing, the air tends to move out, the indoor remains cool pretty much throughout the day. As the water drips here, there is a collection system to remove the water. It is possible to achieve 26 degrees centigrade in peak summer. It is also possible to achieve water temperature of 16 degrees centigrade in Hyderabad using this system. You can see an example here also. Here you can see that there is a thermal storage tank here, which is more of a place which has a lot of heat generated. You have corrugated sheet which absorbs heat, and then this place becomes warm. What air comes in, mist is formed from a small tank here. The tank sprays water, air comes in, there is an inlet. As it comes in, here you have a place which is warmer, and then there is movement of air this way. We look at the case study of passive downdraft evaporative cooling of the IGP complex at Gulbarga. The client is the Inspector General of Police, and here you can clearly see that there are these PDEC tower located at various points. There is a sump for recirculating water. Water is sprayed into this PDEC towers. It is collected down, whatever wastewater comes is collected down, it further goes here and then it is recirculated back. So, this is the plan of the IGP building at Gulbarga. You can also see that this building has followed all the principles of simple passive architecture, like the longer axis along east west, which means you have less exposure to the sun. Here in this building you can see this is the mechanized system of diffusing water into the air. This is the building facade, and these are the towers that I have been talking. Air comes in, there is a cross baffle wall to divert wind into the room, which means wind that comes in does not flow out directly, it does not act like an inlet outlet system, but there is a baffle wall. Because of the baffle wall, air is forced to go inside and it touches the water sprinkler here located here. The water sprinkler is used to cool the air by evaporation, or the air becomes more humid. As it passes this way, there is a wood charcoal layer to filter out dust or insects or anything else from the air, and from here it further is diverted to these two parts. There is some kind of occupancy here and there is another occupancy here. To ensure that both places get cool air, the air is diverted here through the baffle walls. Remaining air comes through these walls and they are further diverted into the places. The excess water from the sprinkler is collected below and it is used for recirculation. There are also towers which make the place warm. This is the sprinkler which humidifies the air. PDEC towers for providing comfort. The other simple passive design aspects of this building are tinted glasses to reduce glare, composite walls made up of granite blocks on the outer side, rat trap bond brick walls on the inside. Rat trap bond has air gaps inside and therefore it reduces heat intake. There are filler slabs, a central atrium to enhance cross ventilation and daylighting, solar PV lighting and pumps are used, rainfall harvesting and water conservation facilities are also incorporated on the site of the IGP complex. This case study clearly shows that if this were to be the ambient air temperature, by use of PDEC, the temperature is reduced to this extent. you can clearly see that temperature is reduced in the month of January by 10 degrees centigrade. In the month of May, it is reduced by more than 10 degrees centigrade. When it comes to the cooler parts of the year, there is not much temperature difference as compared to the summer months. This last element that we would be talking about is radiant cooling, structural slab cooling. Radiant cooling happens by exchanging thermal energy to the space through convection and radiation. What happens here is that we have already seen that about 70 to 80% of heat gain inside the building is through roofs, because we normally do not shade the roofs. Also, roof gets direct incident solar radiation, whereas that does not happen with the walls. The walls can be shaded either mutually or with sunshades, and therefore, the walls do not get direct incident solar radiation. It is the roof which bears all the burden. If we are able to reduce heat gain inside the building through the roofs, we can cut out a lot of heat. This acts on this principle of structural slab cooling acts on this principle. What happens is here, exchanging of heat happens with the help of these tubes which are inserted and it runs in the slab. So, you can see that there are tubes here which are placed within the reinforcement and they run along the slab. The dimension of these tubes, the spacing of these tubes are all done by mechanical engineers through a software. You can see this person is laying the tubes at the particular distance and dimension. So, it can also be used as a way of geothermal energy, where warm air or rather cool air below the surface of the earth is taken, it is pumped in, the cool air goes inside the tubes, it moves through a series inside the tubes. As cool air moves, the concrete around absorbs the chillness. The air that comes out is warm. It is again let out. The cycle continues. That air below the earth, which is much cooler than the outside air, is pumped inside the tubes, and the tubes go through a series of rings within the slab, cooling the slab, and thus warm air is taken out. This is a surface cooling system where water tubes are placed in the roof slab that absorbs the heat from heat sources in the room. The slab absorbs the heat and exchanges it with the circulating water. Instead of air, we can also use water to pump in, because water has more thermal capacity. The warm water is then pumped to a chiller or a geothermal heat exchanger, recooled and returned to the slab. We look at the example of the Carnegie Institute of Global Ecology. Architect is EHDD. It is within the top 10 green projects of 2007. This building uses 45% less energy and 40% less water. This is the building. You can already see towers and baffle walls here, and then some sloped roofs. We will look into the building now. The structural slab cooling cools the building and absorbs heat from the occupied space, and the cycle gets repeated. This is the system or maze of tubes which are laid based on specific calculation at the time of laying the slabs along with the reinforcement. These are the details of the laying of tubes in between two layers of reinforcement. Night sky cooling system, in which water is sprayed on the roof at night. when the spray is exposed to the night sky, it is cooled by radiation. The water is then collected and stored in an insulated tank and used the next day. The other principles that have been used in this building are long shading devices. You can see because of how long the shading device is, most of the glass does not receive any direct solar radiation. Again here you can see there is a PDEC, passive downdraft evaporative cooling tunnel here. So, it acts on this principle. Yes, it acts on the principle that air comes in at a particular temperature and at a particular humidity. It goes through a series of sprinklers, comes down as cool air, cools the building and is taken out. So, warm air enters in, it is sprayed here with sprayers to enhance its humidity, and therefore, the water comes down, or rather the air comes down along with the water particles, making it very humid, and then it comforts this place. You can see these elements here. These are water sprayers. Water is sprayed on the roof and the roof remains cool throughout the day. It is also an extension of the roof pond treatment. Based on the temperature outside, whether it is warm or cool, we can look at the operating of these sprinklers. The Clinton Presidential Library also includes 10 miles of tubing embedded in its concrete slab. This is the building. Earth Rangers Wildlife Center at Canada also has this kind of a cooling system in the slab. The advantages of structural slab radiant cooling are: it provides maximum comfort, it is draft free, there is no noise cooling, lower sensed temperatures, lower investment costs on a long run, lower energy cost, architectural freedom, minimal maintenance, malfunction free operation. Same pipes are used for heating and cooling. The Institute for Computing Information and Cognitive Systems at University of British Columbia also uses this principle. An environmentally responsive architecture is not a fixed ideal, but an evolving concept to be refined and context. Education should take a driving role in this evolution. We need to move beyond the technical fixes perpetrated by current practices and start extending the architectural vocabulary towards a climate responsive architecture, which means it is not just a cosmetic treatment but has value addition to the building. Being environmentally friendly is not just about energy saving, but also about the better use of suitable materials. We have to use materials far more efficiently than we do now. Increased importance must be placed on use of materials which are renewable, recycled and non-toxic, especially in the current scenario of accelerated global warming. Resource reuse and management will go a long way in efficient management of energy. Architects have to be creative in applying passive techniques and reuse materials for building components without compromising on safety and security of the inhabitants. Public awareness must be generated that such buildings are far superior to conventional concrete buildings. So, today we have seen the various advanced passive techniques that can be used in the moderate climate. So, if you are able to have an understanding of the climate, you will be able to generate thumb rules of architectural and planning principles through the Mahoney's table and apply appropriate technology. Thank you.